Esteemed guests, on behalf of the Reborn Political Union and Review here at NYU, I would like to welcome you all to the first event of the semester. Here at the Political Union, our goal is to bridge the gaps between the various political organizations here on campus in order to stimulate conversation, in order to enhance critical thinking, and in order to bring people together and realize that they're not alone here at NYU. Maybe they belong to some political organizations, maybe they belong to others, maybe they belong to nonpartisan organizations. But we're all here at NYU, we're all politically active, and we can all grow from each other by listening to each other.
All right, so today the motion is, should the state prioritize individual freedom or national security? So we decided to come up with this motion due to the recent events of the last year and the last decade. This is at the very heart, I think, of the political scene. So we've had Charlie Hebdo, we've had, in the wake of 9/11, essentially, we've had the American Patriot Act, we've had individual freedoms sort of seemingly curtailed almost without political consent in the traditional manner. Under Bush, under even President Obama, it seems that the executive, it seems that the state in general, and not just the United States, but all over the world, has decided to take matters into its own hands in the face of terrorism, so they claim. So here today, we will be looking at such issues at hand. These are contextual. Part of the debates that the debaters have come up today are not just theoretical, but practical in application. And they will go into policymakers' decisions, so on and so forth. So we not only look at the past and present, but we will also look at the future with this debate. And you, the audience members, at the end of the day, will vote on the winning coalition. And so with that, I'll introduce the debaters and moderators and the floor leaders. So from the Journal of Politics and International Affairs, we have Alex Hassapidis. From Student Tech, we have John Kurtz. Our floor leaders today are Kevin Burns for the Coalition of the Left, Weston Ritchie from the Coalition of the Right, and Angela Sridhar from the Coalition of the Independents. For the debaters, from the left, we have Donnie Donelan, Nija Bolsi, and Kevin Burns as the debaters. From the Coalition of the Independents, we have Sebastian Jimenez, Kenzie Abusabe, and Matt Solinski, as well as Arnav Sood. From the Coalition of the Right, we have John Martin, we have Derek Menzel, we have Henry Sao. Now, before I open debate, I encourage all audience participants to be involved in this debate. So you can show your support by banging on the table, stomping your feet, snapping, clapping, or you can yell "hear, hear" to show your support. Or if you don't like what the debaters are saying and you disagree with them strongly, you may hiss. Something like "sss" will do. All right. So let's have some fun, and the debate is open.
All right. So I'm Donnie Donovan, representing the coalition of the both ideological and organized left. And so what we're trying to make the argument is with what Hezbollah has provided with us in the current history. So basically, the Charlie Hebdo attacks weren't really about silencing free speech. That's certainly not the effect that it had. Newspapers in France and all over the world reprinted sorry, this is really distracting. Newspapers in France and all over the world reprinted Charlie Hebdo cartoons after the attacks, and this was the intended result, to polarize French society, not to have any sort of conversation, but as a recruitment strategy of extremists. And so within this situation, what happened is that the Charlie Hebdo attackers were able to polarize French society as such that was divided into Muslim and non-Muslim people. And in that situation, the population is predominantly immigrant, and especially in France. And as people do know, the rise of the far right within France has become very large, as well as the majority of the EU. And their stance on immigration has actually been quite abysmal. So in this sense, we've also seen kind of the absurdity of the French state taking on this idea of trying to employ security amongst individuals unequally. And so in this stance, we see police have detained and questioned an 8-year-old in south of France who reportedly claimed support for Charlie Hebdo. As Al Jazeera has reported as well, the situation in France has been so polarized and mobilized that any opposition of what is so-called the unified national secular and Western democracy that the France has is that the situation has become that 69 people have already been completely arrested and taken away of their rights. And so as this continues on and as this racism becomes much more severe, we see that the Muslim and mostly immigrant populations are being criminalized, and this is not actually for any safety. And as we've seen in the United States, that when the state is inadequately applying rights to specific people and specific protections, it seems to be that the grouping that is not supported here is the grouping that is also on the other end of the war on terror. And so in that situation, the left will support the ideal of...
All right.
Can I?
Yeah, you can finish yours.
All right, yeah, so just the concluding point, the individual freedom of citizens should be applied equally and fairly, but not in the sense of the fact that like it will be completely backlash and provide blowback.
So, the issue of freedom versus security. It's much like from my favorite book, Team Jacob versus Team Edward. You'll want to support passionately one or the other. You want one to supersede the other, but deep down you know that each one is of vital importance to the plot of the movie, the plot of the book, if you can call such things books and movies. But we, the independents, we're more like Bella. We want a little bit of abs, we want a little bit of skin tone, we want a little bit of the beautiful face, the beautiful hairstylish. We want them both. So that's our premise here as independents. We will not prioritize either security or freedom over one or the other because they are both fundamental to how the democratic societies functions, and they are both complementary to each other. So one cannot function without the other. And so the point of making one your key bias, your key priority, is going to supersede over the other, and then you cannot have a functioning society, because as history has shown us consistently, and as the current times show us, you need the balance between both to be able to strike a good and a united society, to be able to function freely and to be able to function democratically. Boom.
In the coalition of the right, you have the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, in light of the recent atrocities over the past half-decade, such as the 2011 massacre in Norway, the Boston bombing, the 2012 Sikh temple shootings, the Charlie Hebdo killings, and the Chapel Hill killings, and also stemming from larger acts of terrorism, such as the September 11th attacks, many of our preconceived notions on what it means for a nation to be secure have been shaken and questioned. In response to these attacks, there has been a visible paradigm shift worldwide towards the prioritization of national security over individual freedom. Nevertheless,